Salve, and welcome. Today we are in the Gospel of John, chapter 2, taking a look at verses 7 through 8, just about to finish off this page, which means this coming Friday we're going to have the comparison video between our Greek text from verse 5 through verse 8 and this Latin text right here. This is our rubric, everything that that we are looking for as we go through this text. Let's go ahead and get started. Dicit eis Jesus implete hydrias aqua et impleverant eas usque ad sumum, et dicit eis Jesus haurite nunc et ferte architriclino et tolerant. That's a tough word, but it's a very cool word. Moving on, we have starting verse 7, this is the very same word that we had starting verse 5, so I don't need to parse that again. I can just mark that. Says, we want to find a nominative singular subject. That's Jesus right there with us as the ending. And then right next to it we find a form of is, id, but in the dative or ablative plural, since we have a verb of speaking here, the dative makes the most sense as the indirect object. To them being the ministers or the helpers. Looks like we're entering direct discourse right here, so I'm going to put quote marks up. Implete is our first verb. This te here tells us that it's an imperative and it's second person plural. Present tense. And this means fill or satiate. We'd want to have the object filled and then probably a form of the ablative of the thing that is filling the object. We find hudrios here, and hudrios we've seen before. It's that word right there. It's feminine. As here tells us that it is accusative and plural. Water jars. And we find aqua et impleverant. Impleverant is a verb, so we know that we've got a new clause starting at the et. Aqua could be nominative singular or ablative singular. Since we already have Jesus as our subject of the main clause, and this is an imperative, it doesn't make sense for us to have a subject in that sentence, so ablative makes the most sense. Besides, we want an ablative with the verb. Translate that as with water. End quote. Et means and. Impleverant, we've got the same verb here, except that we've got it as an indicative and a different person tense. Erunt is going to be third person. It is plural, perfect tense, and it is active and indicative. And they filled. Then we want another direct object, which we find right here with eos from is, id, accusative plural feminine. Them. And then we come to a bit of the interesting bit. Usque ad sumum. Ad sumum is clearly a prepositional phrase. Usque is a strange word that's always a little bit difficult to figure out, as there are a large variety of different meanings for it. Most of them are relatively close to each other, but the one that we want for this one is up to. And then ad sumum. Ad, of course, is a preposition taking accusative as its object, and this is singular, and we don't know if it's masculine, feminine, or we don't know if it's masculine or neuter, so we don't have whatever word this is modifying, so neuter is going to be the most likely one. But I could be wrong about that. We just don't have enough information. Up to, toward, or to or toward top. This could also mean until, technically. As well as I said, like a dozen other different things. But since we've got the preposition right there, this first one is a little bit awkward. Up to top. Until to top. Still a little bit off. But anyway, so far we have Jesus says to them, fill or satiate, fill is going to be the one, water jars with water. And they filled them until to top, until They were to the brim. Something along those lines. Moving on. Verse 8. Et and dicit, which we have seen before, says, eis, we've seen before right there, to them. Jesus, our subject. Another direct quote. One quote marks right there. Haurite, we've got another imperative right there. Te, second person plural. Present. Active. Imperat. This is draw. Draw water, draw out. Now, adverb telling us when. Et and another imperative right there. Ferte. This is an interesting one because you'll note that there's no vowel between the imperative ending and the stem. There are 5 verbs that do this, at least in classical Greek. There might be a few more in medieval. Did I say classical Greek? Classical Latin. There might be a few more than those 5 in medieval Latin. There is dico, pharaoh, duco, and those are the only 3 of the 5 that I can remember. If I can remember them when I'm editing the video, I'll put a note up about now. Moving on. This is, of course, second person plural, present, active, imperative. Means carry. Carry. Architriklino. As I said, fun, but difficult to say. This one is, of course, they're either dative or ablative, singular, since we've got a verb of carrying. We want an indirect object, so dative is the most likely option. And this means steward, or chief. And the interesting thing about this is actually, it's smashing together of 2 different words. Archon and triclinum. Triclinum means it's like dining room, and archon is master, chief, or lord. So we got chief steward or master of dining room. Now, I don't think most dictionaries will actually say that, but together that's an implied meaning of these 2 words. Et, and so we got a new verb in a different form. It's not an imperative, so this tells us that the direct discourse is ended. Tulerunt. Erunt is, of course, third person plural. It's perfect tense. And this comes from fero. Fero, fere, tuli, latum. Tu is our stem. This is actually one of the verbs where the perfect form of fer disappeared, and the present form of tuli and latum disappeared. So they combined those 3 words into one. So they are used together, each to fill the missing parts of the other one. Active, indicative. And they carried. And there we go. That's all of our translation. Let's see what it looks like in its own context from verse 7, and then we'll take a look at the greater context from verse 1. Jesus says to them, "Fill water jars with water." And they filled them up to top. And Jesus says to them, "Draw now and carry to chief steward or master of dining room." And they carried. So far, so good. Now from verse 1. On the 3rd day, wedding happened in Cana of Galilee, and mother of Jesus was there. However, Jesus also was called and his disciples to wedding. And since wine failed, mother of Jesus says to him, "They do not have wine." And Jesus says to her, "What is it to me and to you, woman? My hour is not yet come." His mother says to helpers, "Whatever he said to you, do." There were, however, there 6 stone water jars placed for the sake of purification of Jews, each holding 2 or 3 measures. Jesus says to them, fill water jars with water, and they filled them until 2 top. And Jesus says to them, draw now and carry to chief steward, and they carried. All right, that's all of our Latin. One thing I'm going to do between now and the review video is I'm going to double check this right here, see if there's actually a proper way to translate it, because it just really sounds odd. Anyway, I'll fix that in the review video. I hope taking a look at all of this has been helpful for you, and I hope you continue to join me. Have a good day, and Wale. Hey, not asleep yet? That's okay. I've got tons of other equally sleep-inducing videos for you to watch. Check them out.